Welcome Behind the Curtain Dipped in Cherry, a video newsletter variety art show. My name's Brandon. Thanks for joining. I bring you an ending. Some endings are sad, some are funny, some are ordinary, many are often confusing. But in the unknown, you will find that most endings are secretly beginnings. This ending is the reflection on an unintentional story I started telling about 6 months ago about rebirth and change. I've rewound, recut to now retell this story as the first season Behind the Curtain Dipped in Cherry.
While my sister was giving birth a couple weeks ago to her first child, knighting me as an uncle, I was ideating how to start this channel and what I wanted it to be an outlet for exactly. But there really is no easy way to start a new chapter. It doesn't matter how much lore or experience carries over from the previous. You can ask for advice or find reference before you start. But the tender softness of a blank page is a mystery only you can raise. The color red has always played a prominent and primary motif in my life. Picking a favorite color is like picking a favorite child. Unnecessary. But since I don't want kids, I feel okay with claiming red as my favorite color. Red is one of the only constants in all versions of myself I've been. My 30th birthday cake was covered in dilapidated red roses. Teenage me had a red iPod Nano. And as a kid, my favorite ice cream to get was a chocolate and vanilla twist cone, dipped in cherry. So many cliches about getting older are true. The tightrope of nostalgia has only thinned and lengthened the older I've gotten, making the balancing act of looking back much safer if you have a certainty of the present. Luckily, I've found my footing to know when to stop turning around before I fall. But when I do let myself wander to the past, I try to bring back the parts of me I abandoned. I usually end up reminded how so much is the same, only because so much is different. I made a poster for the new game that was released this past February called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the sequel to a remake of the original 1997 game, Final Fantasy VII. I think the main reason I felt so compelled to make this poster is because Final Fantasy VII's story about a group of friends who team up to take down their corporatist government that is sucking the life out of the planet still rings crystal clear in my ears today. In regards to my illustration, the hair was the hardest for me to nail. If I'm having a bad hair day, I don't want to be seen by anyone, and I extend that same ordinance to my illustrations. But sometimes you have to work with what you have and keep it moving. Recently on a hot afternoon walk, I received an alert that my 11:40 p.m. flight to the Midwest was delayed by almost 2 hours. I texted, "My red-eye was delayed," to my sister who, if you're following along, just had a baby. As the day continued and I postponed my already pwned packing schedule, I kept thinking, my red-eye was delayed, my red-eye was delayed, my red-eye was delayed. I left for LAX later that evening with a hidden yawn. My head rested against the window, my swollen eyes tracing the moon along the hills, seeing infrared. Ahead stretched a parade of burning taillights like hot coal. I suddenly realized my red-eye was delayed. What an amazing addition to the lore of the book I'm writing, Party Store. Party Store is what we call a bodega, corner store type of shop where I'm from in Michigan. A space to get some water and chewing gum on the way to the bus, where you pick up cigarettes for your friends who are always running late, somewhere to grab a six-pack for your father, fix a mother's sweet tooth fixing, get the local newspaper, ice for the cooler, birthday cards, pop, lottery tickets, and condoms. Over many spring blooms and romantic summer nights, a party store can transform into a watering hole for the wild. It's a place to stop along the way to wherever you're headed next. In 2017, I released a video zine on Instagram called Party Store Volume 1. I had been living in Los Angeles for 2 years at that point, and it was starting to feel like a real home. The zine ended up becoming a place to ease those growing pains. Party Store lives on now as an in-progress illustrated novel. These are some character illustrations I made of the main cast. The yin and yang of writing and drawing for the same story feels like dancing. Listen to the beat, listen to the body, listen to the beat, listen to the body. As these characters flesh out in words, the smoke lifts from my eyes, and the slope of their biceps become more clear with my line. When they hold their friends tight after a late night out, I catch the golden twinkle in their caramel eyes. There were times when they all felt like beautiful strangers that would never notice me at the bar. But now I remember, my red-eye was delayed. I made this month's newsletter mostly from Michigan, where I was visiting my niece. I spent an afternoon at a nearby lake with her and my sister. The day was full of gusts of warm wind. Our docked boat rocked the baby into a deep sleep. Her arms spread out wide, with a faint grin across her cherub cheeks. The bend in her tiny fingers clenched into a strong fist. It feels like she doubled in size in my short visit there. Her curiosity grew after every nap. I can't wait to ask my niece what makes her eyes twinkle, share stories about her mother, and listen to her tell me about late nights out holding her friends. On our drive back home from the lake, the country roads were lined with shaking oak branches. For a moment, the car mimicked our old school bus route, passing a familiar farm field, a childhood friend's home, and our local party store.
How strange that the year is already halfway over and that it's already summertime. And you know it's definitely summer here because, we are in the midst of a heat wave. Well, I feel like actually, everywhere is dealing with some sort of, climate change disaster, clownery circus, because of, the powers that be are be quiet. The powers that be silent. That's not a command. They're being silent. I would love for them to do something. If you take the polarized veil off your eyes, you can see the possibility and magic that the solstice sun brings. I've always had an affinity towards coming-of-age stories, especially ones set in or around summertime. There is magic in letting the solar power guide you through love, friendship, work, and sunburns. Ultraviolet rays help us bear new skin before autumn's first fallen leaf hits. Curiously, we float along without any urgency to get out of the swimming pool. I'm realizing as I go on this blind journey with Dipped in Cherry that not only am I trying to share my work without thinking about an algorithm, I'm also sharing the rhymes and rhythms of my life too. Which does make sense because in a woo-woo way, about a year ago, I thought that a great name for my memoir would be Dipped in Cherry. There's almost this essence, I'm lining up a bunch of bricks to build a home, but stacking them in a way that only makes sense to me. The keys to the inside of what I'm building don't fit in the beautiful Spanish-style homes on my street or the ugly modern apartment complexes popping up all around like weeds. Transitional spaces can feel like a halfway home when you're constructing something new. A foot steps out of one door and the other in a delayed lockstep. June 2014, I was working on campus as an orientation leader for the college I was attending in the Midwest between my junior and senior year, and the capitalized curriculum had planted its rotten seed in my brain. In a few weeks, I would be starting a marketing design internship in Boulder, Colorado. Days before I left to play drag in the design world, I would hear one of the most important guitar hooks of my life. I was editing videos for an orientation presentation in a dark room when I hit play on an album that was just released by Lana Del Rey called Ultraviolence. Immediately, I was hypnotized with the psychedelic wah-wah strings that felt like a kiss.
I'd never dated anyone. I'd never been to New York. I had never my way to the top, but that wouldn't stop me from romanticizing my life in congruence with each track on the album. As the sunrise to senior year came closer that summer, I still had some illusions about my future I needed to see through. Ultraviolence would become the soundtrack of what I thought was one of my, if not my final coming-of-age summer, since next year I would be in the real world. For as inconsequential as that internship ended up being to my career, I still had a refreshing and amazing summer in the Rockies that year. My younger cousin would pick me up from work and we'd blast Ultraviolence on the way home. Sometimes we'd take the scenic route past the Flatirons so we could squeeze in an extra few songs. I can still feel the golden hour light in their rearview mirror and hear the wind on the window duet with Lana's Cruel World. Thankfully, that wasn't my last coming-of-age summer. It's really so crazy to me that Ultraviolence just turned 10 a few weeks ago. In between working on and building my illustrated novel Party Store, I decided to make an Ultraviolence 10th anniversary poster that I illustrated, also made the type too. When Ultraviolence came out, I had never touched the West Coast before, but now I'm going on 9 years living in LA. The career-climbing vines planted in college have been removed from my windows. Now I spend most of my days working on my own coming-of-age story to share. Ultraviolence is a reminder to me to always listen to my heart with my art. A message I find to be my North Star every night when it's just me holding onto the keys to the house that I'm building, where I'll hang up all my masterpieces.
You know that I'm currently working on an illustrated novel called Party Store. The storyboarded scene I'm going to share doesn't require any additional context, but I want us all to be on the same page, so... Party Store is a surreal coming-of-age mystery. It focuses on Vince Sanchez, who's an aspiring photographer, and his group of friends as they experience unexplainable, fantastical moments in between the mundane modernity of their tender lives.
Stars blink the way dreamy eyes do. Distant galaxies are scattered across a vast emptiness like beauty marks perfectly placed on a lover's back. Faintly, they illuminate a cloaked figure walking in galactic darkness on an invisible plane. A lush, sparkling fabric shrouds their body and cascades over their face. It mysteriously dances to a breeze in the windless, shimmering void. There is an alacritous pace to their stride, purposeful in the direction. They walk in front of the twinkling stars like headlights being eclipsed at a crosswalk spotlight. Suddenly, the figure reaches a halt. Their fingers glide upwards in a cutting motion, creating a sliver of red light that expands into an open doorway of bursting ruby light. They take a hard step backwards, blinded by the initial glow, cautious to penetrate the portal. On the other side of the gateway, fog wisps over an infinite staircase leading downward. A remix of whispers melodically invites the cloaked figure to move out of the black and into the red. Their footsteps forward like a chess piece making its next move, 2 spaces up and 1 to the side. Inside, a distorted mirage creeps up the ivory and onyx stairs towards the cloaked figure. As it emerges closer, armor made of black latex takes shape. The helmet and suit chest plate are adorned with a red concave diamond that glows with a pulse. The 2 anonymous beings silently greet each other with a knowing nod. Angelically, they stand backlit in the doorway, silhouetted like LCD statues. All you can hear are the sounds of soft sizzles, like a lone neon sign outside a Party Store, calling out to the night. The cloaked figure looks around, scanning the red room, and begins to speak.
Sorry I took forever.
The voice is distorted. It sounds legible, yet is dueling between static frequencies. Latex Suit places their hand across their glowing chest and speaks with a dueling distortion.
I'm sorry forever took so long, but I'm glad we made it. There's still time. What must I do? Where do I go now that I can see? Leave now while your red eye is delayed. Now? Urgency is unlike you to advise. Each beam of the monarch brings you further from this moment. Will we meet again? After?
Latex Suit pauses before looking out into space.
Are you scared? Of course I am, but you already know that. Then we will meet again, but you already know that.
Latex Suit said, resting their slick hand on their cloaked companion's shoulder.
You can watch from here. Trust your vision, and you'll know where to go.
Cloaked figure nods goodbye, sending latex suit gating down the yin-yang stairs. The beat of their heart guides them towards an unseen desire. Layers of fog dissolve their armor into the rose-tinted void. Cloaked figure grabs the seam of their cape with a slick black glove and whips it off into the stars, revealing a familiar ensemble. A tight-fitting suit made of black latex armor. A red concave diamond glows constantly from their helmet. The uncloaked figure's head snaps towards the galaxies they wandered in from. The tips of their fingers point outwards into a T-pose. Standing on the precipice of space, they lean forward and let their body fall aimlessly down out of the portal. The red doors shut close any trace of their entry. Parallel and adjacent lose their logic as this uncloaked figure falls through time. Without any action, cherry-colored squares start to glitch around their feet to signal the countdown for takeoff. They blast off roaring and trail behind them a turbulent, checkered chemtrail. Their body flies across the universe as a jet-black tear. There is an explosive flash from a camera lens so bright it rivals the hot sun beaming down. Two models decorated in lavish clothes lounge next to a small, glimmering swimming pool. An entourage of crew members is tucked into the backyard, walled in by well-manicured rose bushes and palm trees. Each petal and leaf looks raised by a green thumb. Music blasts through the speakers. "I need more backlight," Vince shouts, holding a boxy camera in a flagrantly fresh leather case. "Chin up, Mimi," Vince says as he squats down to his knees. "Perfect. And Jason, eyes to your right, but don't move your head." The camera shutter rapid fires. "Beautiful." He smiles down towards the models, the sun catching his twinkling caramel eyes.
Change is as constant as the hot sun, always revolving around us, even when things seem dark. Some days the sunburns and growing pains of change sting a bit more, but sometimes you can close your eyes at the beach and feel the hot rays rejuvenating a layer of fresh skin, and everything that came before washes away with the rolling waves. This summer has been no exception to the magic of change. I've experienced new love through the birth of my baby niece. I've witnessed friends begin a new chapter in their lives with a lovely wedding. And I've felt a lonely vacancy with the passing away of my next-door neighbor. And as summer starts to come to an end and we get ready for the next part of the year, all of these moments are lost in time, like tears falling down my cheek in the rain. However, I collect the water of life into buckets so that I can shower spring cherries, hydrate my body, and wash my red curtains.
Looming in the darkness of after midnight, the full moon kept its vigil over the city. A veil of deep gray clouds rumbled ready to rain. Vince and his crew of Nighthawks traveled up begrimed stairs in the secluded outskirts of downtown. He followed in conversation behind Domino, who led them with vigor. The rest of their friends were paired in conversations of brunches, breakups, and bosses. "My shift might be a little rough tomorrow. I stayed out way later than I planned," Domino continued. "But whatever, I roll with the punches and play the hits. If only we could have convinced Carmen to stay out," Vince replied as Domino spun his neck around and locked into his eyes. There was a coquette cadence to their blinks. "But I'm glad you stayed," Vince added. Domino held his stare where the street meets the stairs. "Me too," he amorously smirked. "I'm glad you're having fun, V," he said, basking in the omniscient moonlight. In an instant, Vince felt a cold shiver spread across his body as Domino began to walk across the empty street. He noticed the weight of each blink taken, the peak and valley of his breath, and the drag in his lockstep up the few final stairs. "I wish Carmen had stayed out too. I miss our rave queen. I know she would have had a great..." Domino kept walking and talking. Vince's thoughts moved faster than his body, like his brain was twirling in quicksand. As his foot hit the sidewalk, he smelled a rotten whiff of burning rubber that sank his stomach. Suddenly, birthed out of the dark street, accelerating hot tires from a fast car pointed their high beams at Domino. Vince's eyes widened, hearing the roar and rev of the engine of death. A knowing rush filled mysterious caverns in his mind with heartbreaking wisdom. He watched in front of him, and unbeknownst to Domino's beautiful face lit by the flashes of life. "Mino!" Vince vehemently yelled. The crack in Vince's voice whipped Domino's head around, where he greeted his surprise fate, his naive eyes illuminated by the staring glow of the speeding car. He was a deer in the headlights of an urban meadow, grazing in the past. The long-lost sound of his mother happily laughing began to play in his ear. The taste of hot pancakes and orange juice by the beach touched his tongue. The rush of diving into the ocean for the first time as a child rushed over him like he was swimming with fishes. But then, a wet memory of his first kiss started to dry up. His silver screen dreams turned to ashes as the finality of goodbye cemented into him. Domino stood there frozen while his herd of friends shrieked in their tracks, about to witness his swan song strike. Time continued to move past Vince's comprehension of the present. Across the street, he noticed a shadow of a mirage dashing towards Domino. As the black blur blasted closer, a figure in a dark latex suit with a red diamond on their helmet took shape. They ran towards the epicenter of impact with their arms extended out. The beat of Vince's heart could not keep up with the racing latex figure. Their glowing helmet hypnotized reality to its will. Endings felt like beginnings. Slow looked fast. Cold and hot became one, until finally, the latex figure pole vaulted into Domino's back and toppled him out of the line of fire. There was a lightning strike in the rumbling gray clouds as the moon laid witness to the scene. A sonic static noise ruptured as the car crashed into the latex figure. Their body exploded into a checkered gust that pixelated and disintegrated into oblivion, like a dream fading away by waking eyes. Vince ceased moving, overwhelmed with street fascination. None of his peers indicate they witnessed Domino's slick savior shove him out of the way. Sophie pushes past everyone to hug a distraught and shaking Domino. She asserts her status as best friend with a dominating squeeze. Domino's adrenaline masks the imminent pain in his bloody and swollen knee. The taillights of the rogue driver fade into the distance, burning like coal. Vince searches for a vacancy back to reality, for someone to confirm he saw what he saw, but all that calls back to him is the lunar oracle in the rumbling sky. In a bright cherry red room that stretches for infinity, a lone dark platform vibrates softly. Its heavy bass rattled by humming bass. It grows with power as the sound crescendos to a forte, causing checkered squares to appear. They collect and begin to piece together jet black legs. With delicate precision, the body of the unknown latex figure regenerates shape in this glowing, lonely room. Their rebirth is complete with the final pixel rendering into place. Instantly, they reach their hands up to their dark helmet to release a seal from their neck. They raise their helmet above their shaved head like an offering to God. Within seconds, it dissolves upwards out of existence. Their forearm extends in front of their chest with deliberate speed. A screen projects out, glitching with live footage of the streets of Santa Luisa, where the hit and run just occurred. Vince is hugging Domino tightly, running his hands through his bushy hair. Domino's face remains numb and confused, as he hides the pain in his knee and confusion in his heart. "A taxi's on the way. Vince, you're coming with us," Sophie said with a phone to her ear. Vince looked at her with a united nod. For now, their lingering tension is thrown under a rug quilted in community. "Thank God you jumped out of the way, Domino," one of their friends said. "Dude, you got so much air, like a ballet dancer leaping," another friend continued. Vince looked at Domino with a relieved smile and questioning eyes. The full moon's knowing glow kept his worries illuminated on the glowing red diamond in his mind. More people gathered around the scene as if witnessing a birth at the manger. Conversations began to play over top one another while panic escaped everyone's minds. In the aftermath of the chaos, everyone is breathing. The shy storm clouds finally release their oil of angels in celebration. Rain washes over the scene with a thunderous applause. The latex figure's screen glitches as a teardrop passes through it, ricocheting off the slick suit. Their display zaps away, revealing a familiar bushy mustache and dark brown eyes, sans their matching curly locks of hair. Domino Montoya gently weeps, gazing out into the boundless cherry-colored funk. There is a reborn dew twinkling his eyes with the promise of sunrise. His face is flushed with rosy cheeks that blend into the red room, like tears in rain.
That storyboarded scene you just watched from my in-progress illustrated novel Party Store was inspired by the time I was hit by a car and broke my ankle 5 years ago. However, I hesitate sharing too much about that hit-and-run experience now that you know it was a major inspiration for Party Store. I'm reminded of a quote from the log lady from Twin Peaks. "So now the sadness comes, the revelation. There is a deep depression after an answer is given. It was almost fun not knowing. Yes, now we know. At least we know what we saw in the beginning. But there still is the question, why? And this question will go on and on until the final answer comes. Then the knowing is so full, there is no more room for question."
To take a deeper dip into each segment discussed in this video, check out the individual episodes that built this season. Each video also has their own corresponding Substack written newsletter. Everything you need is linked in the bio. This video newsletter variety show, I seem to kind of change what I was calling Dipped in Cherry each month, but ultimately it was just a space and a project for me to share the things I'm working on, which are very inspired just by what's going on in my life. So Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time the curtain calls.